First of all, thank you everybody for coming to the inaugural Diversity Committee Lunch and Learn and presentation from speakers, of which I hope there will be many more to come. As you may have seen in the invite, we are planning one for later in the year for the men firm. So please feel free to start to think about who might want to speak, whether there's anyone in particular you want to hear from. But we're here slightly belatedly to celebrate International Women's Day and to celebrate the fantastic women we have within our practice and also within our network. You're going to hear from 4 speakers today who are very beautifully sat in front of you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, our one and only Rachel Selleck. As I'm sure you all know, Rachel is a partner and shareholder of Acuity Law and a member of the senior leadership team. With over 20 years of experience in the corporate, commercial and IT sectors, she has a reputation as a strong, diligent and trustworthy lawyer. Rachel is listed as a leading individual in the Legal 500 directory. Rachel has strong links with the Cardiff and District Law Society and has been an honorary secretary of the Society since 2018. Rachel is also a director of the South Wales Chamber of Commerce. Rachel, thank you very much.
I think most people here know who I am, but I do want to just start by saying a very personal thank you to whoever it was that wrote the copy on the invite for this that described me as a veteran. I'll find your name later. So my thing from Juliet for today was just to talk about myself, really. So I did ask to go first because knowing some of the speakers that we've got coming up, I did feel that there was going to be a sort of sense of inadequacy if I had to follow, and particularly some of the younger members that we've got here. And I think, blimey, how have I got to this stage? And this is all I've managed to do. But there we go. Kind of in terms of growing up, I came from a very normal, average family. My dad, my mum, and my sister. My dad was in the RAF, so when I was little, we travelled around an awful lot. We did up sticks and moved very frequently. My mum always talks about moving 13 times in the first 13 years that she was married. Given that I came like a year after they were married, I managed 12 times in the first 12 years of my life. So I was very used to sort of starting at new schools, meeting new people, all those sorts of things. But in terms of my route into law, that really came through school. When I was in what was 3rd year at university, which I think is now, third year at school, which I think is now year 9, my school organised a series of careers talks. And one of the people that came in to talk to us was a family solicitor. It was a lady family solicitor. And I remember just sitting there and listening to her talk about her job and thinking, I could do that. So I kind of had that in my head, went off, did a law degree. I did go and do a month's work experience for family law practice and very, very quickly realised that family law was not for me. Far too much in the way of emotions. So kind of like concentrated on the nice, clinical, impersonal side of company and commercial. But I would say growing up all the way through school and university, I think in terms of barriers for women, I don't think I was really aware of them. And I think some of that was just luck as to the time that I grew up. I think when I was at school, I had female teachers, I had male and female teachers, and all the way through university as well. And I just wasn't really aware that women couldn't or hadn't historically done just as much as men. So it was complete eye-opener for me when I then started work properly. And I started in a corporate environment, and all of a sudden I was thrown into a firm where there weren't that many senior women. I trained at Pitman's in Reading, which, you know, very solid commercial firm. But at the time they had, I think, 13 partners, one of whom was female. And there were just very few senior women within the firm. It was starting to change. So the year that I started my training contract, there were 3 of us who were trainees at the same time. 2 were female, 1 was male. And I think, I don't know if anybody had a chance to read the Gazette that came out on Friday. There was an article in there for International Women's Day. And it did say that mid-1990s was the time that it first became 50-50 in the profession for people qualifying. And that's pretty much sort of in line with my experience. I qualified in 1994, so I would have been round about that. Actually, statistically, if you kind of think of everybody that was qualifying and came into the profession at the same time as I did, you would expect that that balance may have kind of travelled forward. But again, just looking at the Gazette article that I think quoted from the 2023 SRA diversity stats, we don't have equality yet. Currently, there are 53% of solicitors in law firms are women, 32% equity partners, 47% salary partners. And if you look at the top city firms, the biggest firms, currently 34% of partners there are female and only 28% of equity. And that's without touching on things like the gender pay gap at the moment. So there's still a little bit to go, and I think the issue is still around retention within the profession. You know, nothing's going to change the fact that at the moment, women are the ones that have babies, and biologically that isn't changing, and that's where a lot of the dropout from the profession comes. For me, things changed quite dramatically when I moved from Pitmans to Evershares when I was a year qualified, and suddenly moving into that firm, there were a lot more women in senior positions. But I still came across a lot of outmoded attitudes. I did share this story with Juliet the other day, where I think it was sort of late 1990s. I was working on a corporate transaction for a client, and I had an old-fashioned male partner on the other side. I could not get this man to talk to me. He would not answer my calls, he would not answer my emails, I resorted to sending him faxes, nothing. I think eventually I got hold of him once by phone, and I got the response, I've got better things to do in my time than answer your emails and talk to you on the phone. And I then got the message by his client that he had a problem with women solicitors and he couldn't deal with me. So we were coming up to completion, and I think at that time I was very ingrained in we're in a client service sector. Yeah, the client needs have got to come first. So I persuaded a male partner to come to the completion meeting with me. We ended up in 2 rooms where he sat in a room with the client and did the placing bit, and I was in the back room doing the documents just to try and get the deal over the line. I don't think I would do that now, but I was still in my 20s then, and that's what it took to get the deal done. But yeah, some things have changed that I wouldn't expect to see that nowadays. I'm sure there are still a few out of there. But the 1990s, particularly when I was training and qualifying and sort of really sort of becoming a lawyer, it was the age of, for those of you who are old enough to remember, Nicola Hawley, and she wrote a book about Can You Have It All? So she was she was a banker, paid millions in salary. She was a fund manager and sort of had a multi-billion-pound fund that she managed. She had 6 kids. And I mean, okay, she had a nanny to go with them, but the very much the concept back then was if you were a woman and you were in business, you kind of had to do everything that the men had and still run your family and everything else alongside that. Although when you actually read her book, I think her conclusion at the end of that, when her marriage broken up, and sadly she had a daughter that had a lot of health problems and died, was that you can't have it all. I think we have come a long way since then, both for women and for men. There is a lot better balance, certainly across the profession, but it is still, it's still a very stressful profession. I think that's for both men and women, but hopefully we can be a lot more supportive of each other now than I think we have been in the past. When I was talking to Juliet about what I was going to say today, one of the things that I thought I would look back on was just who were my role models, because I think role models are of incredible importance. And I'm looking back, I don't think that there were specific individuals that I would highlight as role models. I think growing up as a child through the 1970s, 1980s, we had a female queen, with a head of state was female. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. I'm not sure I would ever describe Margaret Thatcher as one of my role models, but I think just growing up in a time where we had women in those positions where, again, it was just nobody ever challenged me to say, you can't do that. So, again, that's certainly one thing that I would thank my parents for is that, you know, they've never said you can't do it. I was the first in my family to go to university, and they just sort of let me get on with what I wanted to do, really. But I don't think your role models have to be specific individuals. I think having women in those senior positions and just having an understanding that everybody can do the jobs. I know we're going to have a talk towards the end around imposter syndrome. We'll probably all suffer from that, whether you're male or female. But I think that's where I'd finish, just in terms of kind of, we are role models for each other. And again, the younger members of our panel will show that it's not about age either, in terms of what you can achieve with their accomplishments, kind of certainly put me to shame. So I'll be looking forward to hearing from them.
Thank you, Rachel. Does anybody have any questions for Rachel? Okay, I'm going to kick it off. I've got one for you, Rachel. Thank you. Can you tell us what's been the most challenging memory of your time as a lawyer?
I think there are, every day is a challenge in some ways, in a different way. And some of those challenges are just about learning how to do something, learning how to deal with people. I mean, the story I did just recount about the man in the 1990s and kind of not wanting to deal with women lawyers, that was challenging. As I say, I think I would deal with that very differently now if I kind of had my time again. I mean, there's been all sorts of things. I do remember one completion with, I think I saw Bev here, very late at night. I think we'd been through one night, I think it was halfway through the second night, and kind of being screamed at the top of his voice by one of the private equity people who was putting the money into our client's sale, as to why we wouldn't just accept the numbers in his documents and the deals off. We didn't, and kind of just having to stand there and say to the clients, kind of just stay calm, you're not signing this, kind of. And all I really wanted to do was sort of argue back, and all I could think of was, we were acting for this man in a personal capacity buying his house, and I was thinking, he's a client, I can't shout at him. But that definitely is up there.
And what's been your most rewarding moment?
I don't think it's a moment as such, but I would definitely say you lot. I was one of the kind of first people into Acuity, so it didn't exist as a firm back then. I was actually quite happily working in Eversheds, and when I was approached about setting up a new firm, was I interested? It was one of those where I just thought, there's no way I'm sitting over the other side of town and kind of watching them make success. So kind of I decided at that point I was going to leave and I was going to be part of it. And you know, here we are, lots and lots of people later. It's a very different thing to what we started out with. But that's the thing I'm most proud of.
I'm really very grateful to you. And I think, you know, it goes without saying, reflecting on what you said, Rachel, and Acuity is a fantastic place. You see people of all backgrounds, you know, men, women, old, young, who are actually pushed to succeed. And I was watching Nigel's face when you were telling your story about the 90s and about how I wouldn't have outraged. I don't imagine anyone doing that to Aisha. Does anyone else have any questions for Rachel? No? Well, thank you very much. If we can thank Rachel again. And moving on to our second speaker, sat next to Rachel is Maddie May Malpass. Maddie has been a member of the Welsh Youth Parliament since December 2021. I hope I've got that correct. Having joined the Youth Parliament to give young people a voice with a particular focus on mental wellbeing, physical opportunities for life and equality. Maddie volunteers as a young leader for a local Scouts group with a desire to inspire the future, teach life skills and encourage better mental health. Maddie is also a keen sports person, recently completing Car10, a 108-mile cycle from Cardiff to Tenby. And last but by no means least, Maddie is a Welsh speaker. So I will hand over to her now to talk about her experiences, hopes and desires. Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Maddie, and I am in my second year of sixth form. I'm currently studying maths, physics and computer science, and I'd like to do computer science at university this year. I have been a member of the Youth Parliament for 2 years, and my term is now finishing. At the start, I wanted to just be a voice for young people, and I thought that I had a lot that I could give to stand up for people in my area. Mental health is something that's really important to me, especially as my younger brother used to struggle with it. So I felt that I wanted to give back with that. When I joined the Youth Parliament, I did a speech virtually saying why I thought the mental health was an important topic and why we should focus on it for the term. We had 3 priorities, and one of them was mental health. So I was on the mental health committee. We did quite a lot of research, and we talked to different people and went to events and had questionnaires. And we really wanted to find out a lot about how it was affecting young people in the area. So then, going from the information I had there, I then helped write a report and present the findings in the Senedd last year, which was really scary, but it was also such an amazing experience. And I've really enjoyed everything that I've done through the Welsh Youth Parliament. Mental health is also something that's important in lots of other aspects of my life as well. I have always put mental health as part of a key thing while planning sessions with my Scout group. I started volunteering as a young leader for the local Scout group in COVID. So all the sessions were on Zoom virtually, which has a lot of challenges because it was completely new and wasn't like anything I'd seen before with Scouting. So I just tried to adapt and do as much as I can. One of my favourite sessions I ran was the 2-week workshop on mental health. One was saying about how it's an issue, how it's affecting people, especially with COVID. And then the other was about the 5 ways to wellbeing. So I had different mini activities for each of the 5 ways to wellbeing, and just really encourage people to help each other and connect with each other and do help each other out with during a time period that was really difficult for everyone. Scouts has also given me lots of opportunities for myself. My most recent one was going to the World Scout Jamboree in South Korea last year. So that was very good, and I developed a lot of skills thanks to that, with my independence and resilience. And it's really offered a worldwide perspective that has helped me in my everyday life here as well. As part of going to the Jamboree, I did a challenge before, which was getting the miles, doing a virtual triathlon to South Korea. So I was logging all my miles in the 18 months before going. As part of that, I did do Cardiff to Tenby and lots and lots of training with my dad. I do triathlon. Triathlon is my main sport. 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with epilepsy. This put a few barriers in the way for sports for me, but I was determined to keep going and doing all my activities. I didn't want it to stop me, much to my mum's worry. I've definitely worried my mum out quite a bit over the past 2 years. Doing sea swimming in events, and my mum has made me have a different colour cap so people know that I'm okay. But I haven't let it stop me. And so actually today I'm 1 year seizure free, which is really good. It's I definitely have some barriers with how my life was after being diagnosed with epilepsy and some struggles with medication. But I think now I'm actually stronger because of it, because I've just developed and gone through it. What else did I want to talk about? With triathlon, I'm not the best, I'm not the fastest, but I always try my best and I just put everything into it. And in life, I'm not really motivated by results. I think results are really good and it's nice, but I'd much rather the journey it takes to get it and all the experience I get working towards things. And I just really enjoy everything I do. And I think that makes everything so much easier in life. Last weekend, I ran through East Wales in the UK Intercounties Cross Country Championship, and there's so many people there. So many people much faster than me and much better at running. But I had a really nice compliment off one of the coaches saying that loads of the girls in running look up to me as a role model. And to me, it doesn't make sense because I'm not the best. But she was like, it's just your attitude towards doing sports and how you always have a smile on your face when you do it that just makes people really appreciate why we are doing sports and stuff. And yeah, so that's that really in a nutshell. Yeah.
If no one knows, Mum's sat here. And Maddie, you could run far quicker than I could. Please don't apologise for that. But thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Maddie? Adam?
It sounds like your mum has been a fantastic source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Kind of how important is that to have that kind of role model or any other kind of role models in your life?
I couldn't do anything that I've done without my mum. She's really helped me all my life, from running me around quite a lot. Everywhere I go, my mum takes me and she's always there supporting me, and she's never stopped me, and she's always inspired me and made sure that I've had the best opportunities for myself. And I'm really grateful because just my mum's attitude to life and outlook has really helped shape how I have lived my life so far. Yeah.
Any other questions for Maddie? I've got one, Maddie, if that's okay. Sorry, no, Maddie, you go first.
Obviously, International Women's Day is about celebrating women, and we obviously get onto the inevitable subject of challenges that women have. Rachel, you spoke about some of the challenges. Do you feel that that is still a live issue in young people, or?
I didn't think it was, but then when I started doing computer science at A-level, there was quite a few comments from the boys in my class, because I am the only girl in quite a few of my lessons, but I was never really bothered by it. But I remember going to my first lesson and one of the boys was like, oh, I didn't think the girls in this school was going to do computer science. And I was thinking, oh, okay. And I was like, why did you think that? And he was like, well, it's just not really a girl thing to say. And I was thinking, oh, okay. I didn't think people still thought like that. And there's just quite a few snide remarks for the first couple of terms. And he was asking me like what grade I got and did I really think I was good enough. And I was thinking, I just remember being really offended. And I went home one day and I was like, Mum, I don't get it. Like, it's really not nice. But I haven't really let it get me down because it's what I enjoy doing. And I think it doesn't really matter what other people think, as long as I'm happy and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I just strive to be as good as I can be, to show myself and other people that I can do it and girls can do it, and it shouldn't be a barrier, and it doesn't really change how your ability to do it at all. So.
And it's Scouts now, girls and boys.
Yeah, Scouts.
Yeah, that's what confused me, because when I did it was dark girl guys.
Yeah.
The Scouts is now anyone.
Yeah, Scouts is now anyone. When I started Scouts, I was also one of the only girls there, but it's never been an issue here. It's always, everyone's really equal. And now in where I just got in is pretty 50-50. And it's not an issue at all, and it's just the community.
Any other questions for Maddie? If not, I'll ask you my one. Hey, Maddie, what do you think is the biggest challenge faced by young women in today's society?
It's a big one.
Someone your age.
Yeah. I think there's lots of challenges, but definitely just not thinking they were good enough. And I don't know, it's really. There's like a lack of self-belief with lots of girls my age that I know and in my community. And yeah, I think that's the main one. I think with more role models and more females being in different roles, it's easier because someone told me a couple of years ago that you can't be what you can't see. So with lots of aspects, you don't see as many females doing stuff. So it just leaves you questioning, can I do that? Is that the place for me? Am I going to feel like I belong, or am I going to feel like I'm the odd one out and I'm not as good as everyone else? But it's just getting past the fear and knowing that you can do it. And even if you don't feel like you belong, you should belong. So just be resilient until people know that you do belong there.
Well, if we can all thank Maddie. In my second year of A levels, but thank you so much, and thank you all as well. Okay, moving on to our next speaker, some of whom may already know, is Lashona Williamson. She is in the final year of her 4-year law degree studying at Cardiff University. She won a Law Student of the Year award in 2022 and an Outstanding Leadership Award in 2023. During her time at university, she was first year representative for the Cardiff Law Society, secretary for the Cardiff Law Society in year 2, KIT secretary for the Cardiff University Netball Club, ambassador for the Student Union, president of the Cardiff University Women in Law Society, and is currently the university's anti-racism officer, to name but a few things. But last but by no means least, Lashona is a future trainee solicitor at Security Law and is due to start in August of this year. So I will now hand over to Lashona.
Thank you so much. Just for reference, it's Lashana.
I knew I would get it wrong. Lashana. I apologise.
I'm really excited to talk to you all because it's just nice to come back to Acuity after 2 years because I was here for the vacation scheme. I think I'll start from the start and I'll give you a bit of a background to me and my family. So I've just seen you've opened a Birmingham office and I'm originally from Birmingham, but Dudley, so in a really small community in Sedgley. And my grandma, she came over in 1987 from Jamaica, so I don't know if any of you have watched Bob Marley yet, but that's where my family are from. And she came over with her 4 children and 8 of my mom's cousins, and they all lived in a 2-bedroom house in Dudley. And my nan basically looked after them. She worked 4 jobs. She worked in the NHS as well. My nan sadly passed away at age 50, so she didn't live a very long life, but she did an incredible amount. But when my mom came over, she was 6 years old, and she met my dad, and it's a really nice story actually. They were walking through town on opposite ends of the street, and they looked over at each other, and then my dad crossed the road and started talking to my mom, and that's how they met. But they came to England with little English, and they couldn't read or write in English. So growing up, that was probably my main struggle, because you bring home homework to your parents and you expect them to help you, but my parents couldn't understand anything that my teachers had given me. They couldn't understand maths, they couldn't understand English. And I think that was the main struggle because I didn't have any support at home. So I really did try to make uses of the school's resources. But again, my area is predominantly white where I grew up. So me and my sisters were the only black kids in school, which made it quite difficult. And we did face a lot of racism just because I think it's due to education and lack of, knowledge about our culture and our hair, because at one point our secondary school and our primary school, you weren't allowed to wear braids, or you weren't allowed to wear like hair colours that were extreme. So I turned up the one day with blonde braids to school, and they told me because I couldn't have ever had blonde hair, I had to take them out. But braids take 9 hours to put in. So I was like, okay, let's take them out then. And taking them out took 5 hours. So yeah, but at school I had a great life. And my sisters all follow up in my footsteps, really. I was head girl at school. I did, everything that a suck-up kind of child would do. I sucked up to all the teachers. I was first in all my classes. We had a leadership board at school. She ranked students. So if you were at the top, you'd be able to go to like little trips, or like they'd host like little celebrations for you. But if you were at the bottom of the leadership board, they'd take you on a trip to Alton Towers because they didn't want you there when Ofsted was coming in. So, our school was always in special measures. That's due to like once my sister was caught in a crossfire with one kid bringing in a bomb and setting it off. So I went to really troubled schools, but I made the most of it. And when I look back, I find it so strange that I had a positive experience there, especially for a kid that was sucking up and really smart. And then when I went to college, I went to King Edward's College, and for the people in my area, if you get into that school, you're kind of set, just because no one can afford to go to college, because it's the idea that you need a bus to get to college, and no one can afford bus travel. So no one in my area really went to college, and therefore no one went to higher education. So I went to King Edward's and I got in, and it was a thing where one of my friends actually drove. So I was able to get in the car with her. But if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been able to get to college. But they've set up a school now called Dudley College, and they offer free bus travel to students. So you can get a free bus pass now that takes you there. So it's like trying to improve people from my area to go to higher education. But yeah, if I hadn't have had a friend that could drive, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. And then when I got to college, that was the best experience. But just a bit of information about how I got into that college. I actually got into an all-girls school, which was a private school. But I faced a very weird culture there. So I had gone to their open weeks in summer and it was lovely. And then I joined in September. It's the posh uniform, but they gave me the uniform because I was classed as someone that needed like extra help. And you had to sit cross-legged in like an assembly, and this is all like sixth form. Like I wasn't expecting that, especially because my previous sport, it was a theatre which you had gone to assemblies with. So I get there, and the friends I made in the summer weeks, I assumed that I could like carry on being friends with them. I was like, yes, this is amazing. But they actually said that the school was set up so you could only sit within your race and your culture. So the friends I had made, in my head, I hadn't even clocked that they were much different to me, if that makes sense. I was just like, I'm going to be friends with you. You guys are lovely. And they were like, you can't sit with us. It sounds like Mean Girls, but they were literally like, you can't sit with us because you're not white. You've got to go sit with the black girls. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll make some more friends. But then I went and sat with the black girls, and they were all of African descent. And because my family had come from Jamaica, the Caribbean, I was told I couldn't sit with them either. So I was the only girl with Caribbean descent, unfortunately. So I was sat on my own. And then I was kind of like, I can't do this for 2 years. So I left and I dropped out and I moved to King Edward's then. and luckily I was able to get the car with my friend. And during my time at King Edward's is probably where I probably flourished. I joined the Students' Union. I was on the environmental position. I had the secretary position, and I really enjoyed college. I did English literature. I did early modern history, which is not history to a certain extent. We learnt about witches, so I really loved that. The witch craze, all of that. And then I also did religious studies, but religious studies is probably where I faced a bit of. I had a English lecturer, and she basically said that I was not good enough to do religious studies, that I'm not going to get an A star. Whereas my other teacher, he was male, and he was like, yeah, you're on track for an A star, you're doing fine. And it was almost like I was facing, like, in terms of you should have, I assume that women would help support women, but in that sense it was the man supporting me, and he was like, yeah, you're on track for an A star, you're doing everything, here's some extra materials, whereas the woman was constantly trying to bring me down, and in the end I did get an A, so I'll take that as I will. But that was during COVID, so when I was applying to universities, I wasn't able to actually go and have a look at all the different universities, which was a shame. But I saw Cardiff University, and I was like, I really want to travel the world. I want to see different parts of the UK, and I really, really want to study law. I was told it was better not to study law at college if you're going to do a degree. I don't know why I was told that, but I didn't study at college for that reason. And I went back to my mum and I was like, can we afford to go to Cardiff University? She was like, no. And I looked into it, I researched it. So a little bit more information. I've worked since I was really young, all cash in hand jobs, and I was getting paid less than minimum wage. But I had a paper round. I worked at Italian restaurants. I worked at McDonald's. So I was working at McDonald's full time during my A levels. So I was doing 40 hours a week at McDonald's, but also balancing college. And I was like, right, I'm going to save. And I saved, I think, about £5,000 to get to university. And then I was told that you get student finance. And I was like, wow, lovely. So then I was like, okay, great. But at the same time, I was also giving my mum money because she also needed supporting as well. And all my siblings, I now have 5 siblings because my mum remarried, but all of my siblings have worked and then given my mum money just to support her as well. My mum has made something of herself, I should say that. My mum is a hairdresser and she loves it, it's her passion. And she's also gone back to college now because she's been so inspired by me and my siblings. And she's doing a counselling degree. But we all contributed to the home. And then after college, I got to here. And it was so scary, especially coming to Cardiff. I've never been outside of Birmingham, never been outside of Dudley. So when I got here, it was surreal. It was amazing. And my first year flatmates, they really made my experience far from one, just because they'd never seen a black person in their entire life. And I don't know how, but they were quite racist. But I think it was just due to no knowledge previously of anything, and it was just me having to educate them. And you can't say the N-word in songs, or you can't say it just for fun, or you can't make fun of me for my hair. You can't tell me to straighten it. I will wear it how I want to. And we get on now, but it was just a bit of education that needs to be done with that person. And then when I got to university, I met some of the Law Society at an event that I went to because I was told, if you join all the societies, you'll make friends. And I was desperately needing friends because I knew no one, in Cardiff. So I was like, okay, right, let's get to the societies, let's make some friends. And at the Law Society, I think 2 of them had got training contracts and they were in like their 3rd year. And I was like, wow, like this is inspirational. Like I want to be like you when I'm older. and I constantly ask questions, and basically I was kind of stalking them in a way on their LinkedIn and on their Instagrams. And It was great because then when the elections came around and they were looking for a first year representative, I was like, I really want to do that. I want to join the committee. I want to join the circle because I feel like if I get closer to you guys, it will help me on my own journey as well. It will probably help me know a bit more about how to get into the law, because I felt like a lot of the people I met on my course, they sort of had connections. So they were able to get experience willy-nilly, whereas I felt like I didn't understand anything. So and then I joined the society again as secretary, and then in my second year I decided, you know what, I'm going to create a Women in Law Society. So I was the president of that, but I'm also the founder of it at Cardiff University, and I also founded the Commercial Awareness Society along with a great bunch of boys. We had a lot of hate because I was the only woman on the society committee, and a lot of women in the university were like, well, surely there's more than one woman that wants to do commercial law or needs to know about commercial awareness and wants to advocate for it. So we went on the hunt, and there was more keen women that wanted to get involved, and so we expanded our society committee. I've also worked with UN Women, and I'm now a non-vote delegate this year, and we're basically working on the Commission of the Status of Women. So the events actually kick off today. There's an event at 5:30 which discusses how poverty can really impact gender diversity and the roles women take and the part-time role of a mother, and how women can't necessarily escalate in their careers due to being parents and so on. We're discussing this in family law as well, with if we were able to make an equitable remedy in where, you know, women and men could take time off, would men choose to be a stay-at-home dad? And I asked my stepdad this, and he was like, no. And I was like, why not? And he was like, because I love my job too much. And I was like, oh, surely your wife might enjoy her job as well. So yeah, I really enjoy working with the UN, and I think it's an incredible opportunity. Again, with the other positions that I hold, I'm the relations coordinator for Ladies of Law, so that's a massive community. So there's over 19,000 members on LinkedIn and on Instagram. We've got a website and everything. It's incredible. We hold events in London, Bristol, Liverpool and Cardiff, and we're going to try and expand. We're doing a Silex event, I think it's next week. I'm also the blogs and content co-lead for the Neurodivergent Lawyer Project, which was founded by Amelia Platten, and she's a trainee solicitor at Clifford Chance. And it's incredible just with the way that, because when you want to apply to firms, there's not adequate resources for all people, and it's discussing with those firms what they need to do to change. Like, not everyone feels comfortable in an interview setting. How can you change your way that you interview people, and if they need resources beforehand, how do you get those across? Because not everyone wants to ask for help. So how do you put that into your, how do you put that into your interview package, but not in the same way? It's really interesting, and we work together as a team to try and help each other, especially with mental health. And I'm glad you touched on mental health, because it's incredible how little mental health people have in the legal industry. I was thinking about, because I also work part-time at Starbucks at the moment as a supervisor, and one of the girls the other day, she studied medicine. She was like, I'm going to have a mentee B, Lashana. I was like, what's a mentee B? She was like, a mental breakdown. And I was like, why? And it's just because no one really was reaching out, and she wasn't reaching out to people, and she just needed someone to listen to. And I was that person that listened, and she was very grateful. But I think we just need to keep our ears open and help each other. I know you said that you worked with Scouts as well. I was a team leader for Scouts, but beforehand I did do girl guiding, because I know that there was a distinction between girls and boys at one point, and I was that young that there was that distinction. Scouts were only for boys and girls only for girl guiding. And yeah, I loved girl guiding. I did the Baden Powell Award. Girl guiding gave me more friends, and I'm always grateful to have friends. And then, last year I won the Top 150 Future Leader Award for Black, African and Caribbean students in the UK. So it's a very prestigious award in the sense that it's the top 150 Black, African and Caribbean students in the whole of the UK who are doing a degree. And it was just so inspirational to see what other students were doing as well. Like, as much as I like to talk about what I'm doing, it's also nice to know that there's other people advocating for change. There's this one girl and she's created the Halo Code. So it's where businesses agree to not discriminate against people's hair. And you might not think it's that much of a big deal, but I've experienced it in my vacation schemes, not the one here. I had a lovely experience. But in my other vacation schemes, I experienced, so some days I wear my hair straight. It was my own little experiment, but sometimes I wear my hair straight and sometimes I wear it curly, and a full-blown afro. And it's really interesting to see how people treat you differently due to the way you wear your hair. And it was great to see that she created a code that businesses were actually taking on board. And it was great to see such big businesses like Next and Unilever. I know I'm going on about her achievements now, but I do love supporting and empowering women as well. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I think we've got a lot to say.
Does anybody have any questions after all of that?
Yeah, I'm interested to understand your motivation. So when you said that basically the naughty kids got taken to Alton Towers and the good kids had like a sandwich in there, I kind of wondered what was it that drove you to be that high achiever?
What drove me to be a high achiever was just seeing my parents' struggles. I think when you come from no money and especially when you're like embarrassed to bring people home just because your home is not like really good. And like the kids would turn up to school in flashy cars, you don't have a car. It motivates you to want to do something for your family in the sense that, especially because I'm the oldest child, it was kind of like, right, they brought us, like my nan's brought us to this country to do better for ourselves. My parents, they haven't had that opportunity. I want to be that person that supports them and makes them have a better life. Unfortunately, my dad did die, so he hasn't been here because he died when I was 9. He hasn't been here to see what I've made of myself. But the rest of my family, wow, they're like really happy for me. I know graduation's on the 19th of July. There's going to be over 20 of us traveling to Cardiff. So yeah, it'll be really good.
Oh, thank you very much for being. Thank you. On the end, I'm pleased to welcome Gemma McKee. Gemma is the director at Insight, who work with people and organisations to thrive and succeed, and whose mission is to lead you to your next level if possible. Gemma's role is to develop and maintain strong relationships with clients, working closely with clients to understand and shape their development priorities. Gemma takes time to build impactful relationships with those she works with, creating conditions that allow clients, participants, and project teams to thrive. And over to Gemma. Thank you very much.
I don't want to go now. I don't know what to. It's not stopped me that I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome. I'm sitting here with a piece of paper to remind me of my notes after that. That was amazing. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me along today. My role at Insight, Insight are a business psychology consultancy, so our expertise is in understanding human behaviour in the workplace. It's about going into organisations and working with individuals and teams to really bring out the things that you're already good at and doing really well at and getting even better at those things. It's not about focusing on the things that you're not doing well. It's about doing more of the good stuff, because that's what makes people happy at work. That means you're playing to all your strengths, and that means that you're getting the best out of each other as well. And I love that. I love going in and finding out what it is that people can do. And we're all very different at work. We've got, if you map us all out on a psychometric tool, we're probably at opposite ends. And that means we've had to really work at understanding each other and giving each other space and valuing things that drive us nuts some days as well in each other, that, you wouldn't naturally choose to be working alongside. 2 years ago, we went through a management buyout. So 4 of us who were running the business essentially bought it from the 2 previous owners. So there were 4 of us females, bought it from two men in their 60s. And we experienced all the things that you would probably imagine that dynamic would throw at you. We were told we didn't understand things, that we were getting things wrong, that we were making the wrong decisions, with a bit of a, you'll be okay if you just do it our way, which was to give them more money. So we did not go their way, we did it our way. But we questioned ourselves, we doubted ourselves, we were afraid to say things in meetings because we thought we'd be shouted down, and we wondered whether it was all going to be worth it. And actually it was worth it, and we did come out at the end, and they have never spoken to us since. But I can make my peace with that. I'm going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, because that's how we felt, even though we've been running the business for a decade before that. And we knew what we were doing, and we knew we were successful, and we knew what our strengths were. We were made to feel like we couldn't bring anything valuable to the table, that our ideas weren't worth it, that the direction we wanted to take the business wasn't going to be successful. And I would imagine every single person in this room has had that sense of thinking you're going to be found out, that you're going to be sprung and chucked out of the party or the event or the job or whatever it might be, because you are blagging it in some way. And I think there is an element of blag every day that people go through. Even the most senior people in the room have probably had days that they will bury their head under a duvet and not face the day. Where we've been really interested in, as female leaders, what are other females experiencing in the workplace? How does the difference in imposter syndrome show up between men and women? And this is certainly not something that only women experience, men experience it all the time as well. There's just conditions that we create that enable women to verbalise it a little bit more than men maybe. What we want to be doing is creating spaces that allow women to verbalise it and not feel that they're going to be treated disproportionately because of it. It's not that you're not competent at doing things, it's because you want to get better and improve yourselves. So imposter syndrome are those feelings of self-doubt where you question that what you've got to bring to the table is going to add anything to it, that everybody else in the room knows more about you, more about a subject than you do, that nobody really wants you there, you're just there by luck or by chance, or because you know somebody, whatever it might be. And when you think back to all of the successful people in every walk of life, somebody somewhere has articulated that sense of having imposter syndrome or experiencing self-doubt. Judi Dench will say that she doesn't consider herself to be the best actress when she steps out onto a stage. She's arguably one of our most successful Shakespearean actresses. At the weekend, there was something about Prince Edward feeling the weight of responsibility, being called the Duke of Edinburgh now, after his dad had done it for so long, and it being synonymous with the type of person that he is, Michael or Loeb. But there comes a weight of responsibility with some of these things, and we have to create working environments and cultures and communities that enable people to bring their full self and be true to themselves as well. There's a book called The Authority Gap by Mary Ann Sieghart, which you may or may not have heard about. And in that, she talks about how men are considered competent until they prove otherwise, in general terms, and have to prove themselves and are doubted and are considered incompetent until they prove their competence, and then they're worthy. And that really interests us in terms of how do we create spaces which enable women to show up as they are with all the strengths and behaviours and the competencies that they bring, without feeling like they've got to go that extra mile. What is it that women have to do, but what is it that men have to do as well to create those good conditions? As a female leader, I was the only woman on the senior management team when I was 27 at a UK head office of a Japanese car manufacturer, which was incredibly male. I mean, it was just men everywhere. It was probably the best job I've ever had. It was not because the men over there, but because I was given an insight into a world that, like you were saying, that some of these examples that you're talking about that go back to the 80s and 90s still are still prevalent in our workforces. The fact that you guys are talking about some of these things now is really quite scary, that we haven't moved on as much as we maybe think we have. I've sat in meeting rooms where I've been talked over, where I've been ignored, where I've been patronised, where I've been asked to take minutes, where I was asked to climb under the table and plug in the projectors, and then there were all sorts of propositions that went on while I was under that table. And I had to deal with that as a young 20-something female in that environment. And that's continued through, you know, examples that I'm sure a lot of women have experienced, maybe men have been in that situation as well. And it's hard. It makes you question your abilities. It makes you question your ideas. It makes you wonder whether it's all worth it, actually, because you could probably have an easier life doing something else. But there's something in the way that we think about from the way we treat kids when they're younger. You know, if girls are being very forthright, we tell them to stop being bossy. When boys are being really bossy, we tell them that they're just a bit rambunctious, or they're a bit boisterous, or they're just boys being boys, you know. So that conditioning happens from a very early age without us all really thinking about it. We know it, but we don't think about it. And we've got to be really conscious of that. You know, you think about times when you hear a more softly spoken woman on the radio or on TV in a debate against a very loud, confident man. You have to really concentrate on what the woman is saying, to not dismiss that because the man is speaking louder. A little bit of humility and a little bit of checking yourself is really quite important. And I was saying earlier on, I read an article over the weekend about Liz Truss. And it was quoted by a parliamentary aide that they'd never met anyone who had zero self-doubt. Look how that played out. So all the people who have got that self-doubt, who do have that sense of imposter syndrome, we actually need to use that as our superpower and actually think how we're going to use that to our benefit in organisations, and to think about how we work effectively with each other. Self-doubt in itself isn't wrong. And women who have imposter syndrome, as the studies have shown, have developed behaviours which are really beneficial to organisations. They, and I'm speaking very generally now, without, you know, otherwise we go on all afternoon, but women listen more. Women tend to go into meetings better prepared because they're ready to be challenged or questioned more than men in the room. Women have developed a level of emotional intelligence that men sometimes don't have to consider, because women are expected to do that. And if you don't, then why? You know, what extra are you bringing? You've already got all these skills here. So there's an extra layer in there that women and women in leadership positions particularly have to think about. And for women coming up in the management and leadership world, these are barriers that you're going to have to break through, that we all have to do something about now. So in terms of how, when we go in and we work with organisations, we spend a lot of time, whether that's through executive coaching or whether that's through working with team dynamics, to find out if those teams really understand and appreciate the strengths that their team members are bringing to the table. Do you know what Bob is really good at? And do you know what Betty is really good at? And are you playing to their strengths, regardless of whether they're male or female or cat or dog or anything in between? What are they bringing to the table? Because you're not maximising their strengths if you're just putting them in a box and considering that they are just what you think they are. Imposter syndrome will help fuel you in a way that means you're better prepared, and you'll think of different outcomes and you'll come up with different solutions. Going into the spiral of embarrassment and shame, and that is not good, so you've got to catch yourself. But a little dose of humility where you are taking that time is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So I had a couple of tips about what you can do in the in your organisation, and the first one is, don't confuse confidence with competence. You can be the loudest person in the room, it doesn't mean what you say, right? A little bit of confidence is good. There will always be times in your career when you have that self-doubt. There'll always be times when you feel really confident. Don't let either one of them derail you, because too much of either one of you is not going to play to your strengths. Don't punish yourself for a bit of overthinking. You know, when you start beating yourself up for beating yourself up is a downward spiral. It's actually about playing to your strengths and recognising you're going in extra prepared, or you might come up with a different. Don't be afraid to speak up. Even if somebody shouts down your idea, you vocalise something that's important to you. Don't let it dull that spark. Strengths is a really important one for us in the work that we do. Strengths are not just something that you're good at. They're something that give you energy as well and contribute to a bigger picture. I can do spreadsheets, but I don't enjoy it. So I know people who are better equipped to deal with those things. Play to their strengths, let them do the things that are really good, and you'll start creating environments where everybody can thrive in their own way. And actually listen to other people, because they'll tell you the things you're good at more than you will. We're conditioned psychologically to think about the negatives because it keeps us out of danger, it protects us. So sometimes the voice in your head can be the worst one, whereas a friend or a relative or a colleague who can say to you, you've got that, you're really good at that, they're the people you need to listen to, not the little voice in your head. The leaders and managers in the room, I think creating team and organisational cultures that are fostered on trust is a really big one. You have to create the conditions that enable people to be able to speak up. If men are experiencing imposter syndrome, they should be able to vocalise that. It doesn't mean that they are incompetent or that weak or any of those things. In the same way, it doesn't mean that for a woman either. It's you should be able to say, I don't feel like I can do this. That's fine, you're here because we think you can do it. And you need somebody to be doing that. We know the most successful teams are founded on psychological safety and trust. And once you've got that foundation, you can start building on positive conflict, because when you trust each other, you can build up to that next level where you can have a difference of opinion and it's okay. You're not going to be ridiculed for coming up with an answer. Once you've got that level of conflict where you can argue and debate and have a difference of opinion, you can start using people that calling people to account for things, because you said you would do that, which is going to enable us to do all of this, and people will buy into it. People have got to have that commitment to what you're trying to do, and together you reach that top bit where you're looking at joint results rather than one person succeeding when other people don't. And my last one was around valuing thoughtfulness as well as confidence when you're recruiting or when you're promoting. Again, bullshit goes a long way. You've probably all been alongside people who can do that until the cows come home. There's got to be some substance there as well. I know that sounds like common sense, but obviously you've seen some of the people that rise to the top who give it all of that. And look beyond overconfidence. There will be times when confidence is great and you've got to talk yourself into the game. I'll fake it till you make it, but don't believe the hype in your own head sometimes. Make sure you get that balance right.
That's really interesting, Gemma. Does anybody have any questions for Gemma? I'd love to think about that.
I just from watching everyone's faces, really. Particularly talking about the confident ones, you can kind of see all this.
Yeah, confidence over confidence definitely comes and rings about. Do you think, have you seen in your career over the last few years that there has been a shift better for women, or not in your own experience having?
Yes. It's yes. However, these examples have just gone to show that it's not the case everywhere.
Yeah.
I think more people are speaking out. I think the whole mental well-being side of things is really important, because when you're putting a mask on every day, it's really draining. It's really hard to try and be somebody you're not, particularly if you don't feel like you fit in for whatever, you know, where the intersectionality comes in. There's a whole other layers that go into it as well. But certainly, I think you have to ride the waves a little bit. That, you know, things aren't going to change overnight. I can remember when I was at the car company, we had all the Japanese senior management team come over, so we were all all our best behaviour, we're all introduced to them. And then that we went to this fabulous castle in Ireland, and they all went out to play golf. And they said to me, oh, we assumed that you didn't want to come and play golf. And it's the only time I've thought, oh, I wish I could play golf. I play golf really, really well. So I stayed behind and waited for them all to come back so we could all have a cup of tea afterwards, you know. And I just thought, oh, this isn't how it's meant to be, because God knows what was discussed on that golf course that wasn't done in the room, because it was felt like that was another. So I mean that's 15 years ago now, and I think it has changed in the motor industry. So I've got a lot of friends who are still there, and women are, there's a lot more women in senior positions. My experience at the BBC was not the same as that. I have been told when I was at the BBC that I didn't understand what the engineers were talking about. I didn't understand what the engineers were talking about, but that was the point. Oh my God, I'm here to help you. This isn't about us proving who's better or not. So I think it is changing. I think people are checking themselves a little bit more. I think there's some establishments which are just so ingrained that it takes some very, very brave, tough people, women, and to face up to it and call it out. But it's changing. I think it's changing.
Do you think there's a danger that women develop what could be seen as negative traits in order to counterbalance what they're experiencing in the workplace? And how do you address that or deal with it? I guess, have you seen a female that maybe hasn't developed the negative traits that is able to perhaps do it in a balanced way and still become successful, or is it a case that they are developing these male dominant traits in order to be successful? Sorry, that's probably a big question.
No, I think it's true. If you listen to Mary Porter's talk now, she talked about when she, in her early career, she felt like she had to be the alpha.
Yeah.
In the room, to be at the table with everybody. I said, no, I wish I hadn't done that. It should just be me. I think there's definitely something in there about knowing what your strengths are. We never take time to stop and think about our own development. We never stop to think about what we're really good at and then be proud to say those things or to ask somebody for help, because we're assumed to want to do it all ourselves. And I think, there are lots of women who've had to do that. And I think that's changing as well. I think what's acceptable for women to wear in the office now, when we go out, I think that's changing because people are comfortable being me. This is who I am now, and I think we just need to keep championing that. There will still be your alpha females out there, and quite frankly, they're very scary. But alpha males can be very scary as well, aren't they? We just put them and go on, Yeah.
Thank you everybody for attending today. I hope you found it interesting, and I very much hope this is going to be the first in a long line of sessions like this, where we can listen to some frankly just amazing, inspirational people, and open some dialogue about these things because they really matter. So we will see you later in the year for our men's events. Again, a shout out to the men in the room. Anyone fancies coming up here and being the person in the hot seat, you're more than welcome. But for the time being, the biggest thank you and the biggest recognition has to be to our amazing four speakers today. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your clearly very busy, very hectic, very important schedules to come and speak to a bunch of lawyers and lawyer supports.